What do you think of when I talk about worship? It's kind of a big word, but today we're going to look at what that means in terms of the Psalms. Hey everybody, I'm Dan, and this is Truth Tuesday. So as a worship minister, this is a big part of my job, looking for good worship songs. Every Sunday that we gather for church, we have a selection of songs that we sing, and through those songs, we like to talk about different aspects of who God is and what He has done, and we worship Him for that. To worship Him simply means we give credit where it's due. We recognize that all these things come from God. We recognize how great He is, and we tell Him about that. So today, in kind of that spirit of looking at great worship songs, I want to read for you the lyrics of one of the greatest worship songs that has ever been written. And that song just so happens to come from the book of Psalms in the Bible itself. Today we're going to be looking at the 96th Psalm, or Psalm chapter 96, depending upon how you want to say it. And we're going to look at some aspects of this psalm together and really get an idea from the psalmist's perspective of what it means to worship. We're going to see a couple of things today. We're going to see a call. We're going to see a way that we invest ourselves in worship. And we're also going to see some of the why it is that we worship as well. So strap in, because this is kind of a long section we're going to be reading today, but it's a beautiful thing and we're going to get a lot out of it. So I'm going to read to you using the New International Version today, and we're going to start with Psalm 96, verse 1. We're going to read this in chunks. Let's start with the first three verses. The psalmist writes, "Sing to the Lord a new song. Sing to the Lord, all the earth. Sing to the Lord, praise His name, proclaim His salvation day after day. Declare His glory among the nations, His marvelous deeds among all peoples." Right out of the gate, the psalmist starts with a response from you and I. What are we called to do? We are called to sing to the Lord. That is something that we have to actively be doing. We have to actively be engaged in. We're actually going to see two more things that the psalmist calls us to do, but right out of the gate, he says, sing to the Lord. Do these things for Him and declare Him among the nations. This is an interesting psalm in the context of the book of Psalms, because this one spreads beyond just the nation of Israel. This is a psalm that includes the entire earth and just the greatness and the breadth of who God is and what He has done. Let's go ahead and move on now to the fourth verse. We're going to read 4 to 6 now. "For great is the Lord and most worthy of praise. He is to be feared above all gods, for all the gods of the nations are idols, but the Lord made the heavens. Splendor and majesty are before Him. Strength and glory are in His sanctuary." You see, the psalmist begins by telling us what we should do, and then he follows it up with the why. Why should we sing? Why should we declare? We should do these things because God is powerful. All the other gods that exist across the world, the nations, they are idols, but our God made the heavens. He is all powerful. He is in control. That is the why we should do what we are doing. Let's go ahead and move on to the next section now. We're going to read 4 verses, verses 7 through 10. This is the next action section on our part. Verse 7. "Ascribe to the Lord, all you families of nations. Ascribe to the Lord glory and strength. Ascribe to the Lord the glory due His name. Bring an offering and come into His courts. Worship the Lord in the splendor of His holiness. Tremble before Him, all the earth. Say among the nations, the Lord reigns. The world is firmly established. It cannot be moved. He will judge the peoples with equity." Now, everybody, there is a lot in here, but there's a couple of things that I want us to see. The first one is that word, ascribe. Now, we don't generally use the word ascribe too much in our normal conversations, but that is a very powerful word, especially when we are talking to God. Now, the word ascribe literally means, it's kind of a bland definition, to give a value or meaning to. But in terms of ascribing these qualities to God, you know what we are really doing? We are looking at God and telling him and affirming who he is. So when the psalmist says, ascribe to the Lord glory and strength, we are looking at God and we are saying to God, God, you are glorious. You are strong. When he says ascribe to him the glory due his name, we are giving him that glory that he deserves. In worship music, in doing worship music like I do, one of the things that I look for the most are songs that are ascriptive. Some of the greatest worship is worship where we just look at God and we tell him how great he is. Even if we are removed from the picture, it is about God and how wonderful he is. If we look down a little lower in verse 10, we see the next of our action words where the psalmist says, say among the nations, the Lord reigns. Because you know what? He does. God is God over everything, and we are called on, even through our worship, to proclaim his greatness across the entire earth. Wow. Let's wrap this up starting in verse 11. The psalmist writes these words, let the heavens rejoice, let the earth be glad, let the sea resound and all that is in it. Let the fields be jubilant and everything in them. Let all the trees of the forest sing for joy. Let all creation rejoice before the Lord, for he comes to judge the earth. He will judge the world in righteousness and the peoples in faithfulness. Let all the earth rejoice. All creation rejoice. Everything that exists point to God and glorify him because he is our all-powerful creator. It is interesting, too, that the element of God's character the psalmist rejoices in is God's judgment, God's justice, God's fairness, God's all-powerful involvement in our world. It is truly amazing. So today I hope that as we look at this wonderful worship song from the book of Psalms, that we would both be reminded that we need to participate. We need to sing. We need to ascribe. We need to proclaim him to the nations, but also because we recognize that he is good, he is glorious, he is fair, and he loves us. Happy Truth Tuesday, everybody. Have a great week.